Today we're going to be looking into the Mongol Empire.
Okay.
And it looks like you've brought some really interesting sources.
Yes.
Including excerpts from the Fall of Civilization's YouTube series.
Right.
Which is known for its dramatic storytelling, right?
Yeah, it's one of the things that makes this source so compelling.
Oh, cool.
Is that it doesn't just present, dry historical facts.
Right.
It really brings the Mongols to life.
I love that.
Helps us understand their motivations and their impact on the world.
And from what I've seen, it's not just about battles and conquests.
Right.
It goes into their culture, religion, even things like their fashion choices.
Yeah.
I never would have guessed that gold nose rings were a status symbol for Tartar kids.
It makes you wonder what yours would have been in the Mongol Empire.
Okay, so let's dive into the heart of it. One of the sources mentions Ibn Battuta, who traveled through Central Asia in the 14th century.
Right.
And it sounds like he kept encountering these ruined cities. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes. So Ibn Battuta's observations are really powerful, I think, as a starting point, because he describes once thriving cities like Bukhara and Samarkand.
Oh, wow.
Bulk, major centers of trade and learning.
Yeah.
Reduced to just shadows of their former glory.
Oh.
It really sets the stage, I think, for understanding the sheer scale of the Mongol impact.
That's a really striking image.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes you wonder what force could have been powerful enough to cause such widespread devastation.
Well, of course, the answer is the Mongols.
Yeah.
But to truly grasp, I think, their impact, we need to look at the bigger picture.
Okay.
And that is the Eurasian steppe.
Okay.
So this vast expanse of grassland stretching from Eastern Europe all the way to China has historically been a breeding ground for nomadic empires.
Right. Nomadic horsemen have been a dominant force in that region for centuries, haven't they?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's a pattern we see with these nomadic empires. They emerge from the steppe, driven by various factors, whether it's environmental pressures, internal conflicts, a desire for new resources. They conquer, they influence settled societies, and then they eventually decline either through assimilation or internal strife.
Yeah.
The Mongols, in many ways, followed this pattern, but they took it to an unprecedented scale.
So tell me, what was the state of the Mongols before they exploded onto the world stage?
So in the 12th century, the Mongols weren't this mighty unified force we imagine them to be.
Right.
They were a fragmented, relatively impoverished group on the fringes of the steppe.
Oh, wow.
Unlike some of their neighbors,
they
didn't have a unifying religion like Buddhism or Islam, nor did they have a strong political structure.
So what held them together? What was the source of their identity?
Well, what they did have was a unique belief system. The worship of Tengri, the sky god.
Interesting.
And this shared belief fostered a sense of common identity and destiny amongst the various Mongol clans. And let's not forget their origin myth. The legend of the blue-gray wolf, a powerful symbol of resilient survival and their connection to the natural world.
It's amazing how a story can have such a profound impact on people's identity, isn't it?
Absolutely. And it's from this backdrop that a figure emerges who will change the course of history. Temujin, the man who will become Genghis Khan.
His story is like something straight out of a movie, isn't it?
Oh, it is, yeah.
I mean, his mother being abducted, his turbulent childhood, facing betrayal and imprisonment. It sounds incredibly dramatic.
It certainly is a dramatic origin story, but through a combination of strategic alliances, cunning, and let's be honest, ruthlessness, he rises to power. He overcomes his rivals, including his blood brother Jamuka, and unifies the Mongol tribes under his leadership.
And in 1206, he's crowned Genghis Khan, a title that translates to Oceanic Emperor.
Yes.
That's quite a title.
It is.
But he didn't just rest on his laurels, did he?
Not at all. He immediately embarks on this radical restructuring of Mongol society, transforming it into a highly organized and incredibly efficient military force.
Wow.
One of the key elements of this transformation was the decimal system.
The decimal system, I'm not familiar with how that was used in a military context.
So essentially it involved organizing warriors into units of 10, then 101,000, all the way up to a tumen, which consisted of 10,000 warriors.
Wow.
This system allowed for tight control flexibility and rapid deployment.
So it's almost like a well-oiled machine, each part working together seamlessly.
Precisely. And to further solidify his control and unify the Mongols, Genghis Khan implemented the Yasa, the Great Law. This was a comprehensive legal code designed to suppress internal conflict and promote unity.
So it wasn't just about military might. Yeah. It was also about establishing a system of law and order.
Exactly. The Yasa covered everything from military organization to social behavior.
Wow.
And it was enforced with brutal punishments for disobedience.
Okay.
It was a fascinating paradox, creating a unified empire through both extreme violence and a codified legal system.
Right.
And with this newly forged war machine, Genghis Khan sets his sights on expansion.
Okay.
Starting with the Western Shia, also known as the Tangids.
And this is where the Mongols face a new challenge, right?
Yeah.
I read that they initially struggled against fortified cities.
Yes, that's correct. The Mongols were masters of warfare on the open steppes.
Right.
But siege warfare presented a new set of challenges.
Yeah.
The Western Shia campaign was a turning point.
Okay.
They realized the importance of siege technology.
Right.
And quickly adapted, incorporating Chinese siege weapons and tactics into their military strategy.
It's interesting how they were able to learn and adapt so quickly.
Yeah.
That must have been a key factor in their success.
Absolutely. Their ability to learn from their enemies and incorporate new technologies was remarkable.
Yeah.
And this adaptability would be crucial in their next major conflict. This time against the Yuan Dynasty, the rulers of northern China.
And if I remember correctly, the Yuan Dynasty made a pretty big miscalculation when it came to the Mongols.
They did indeed, underestimating Genghis Khan.
Right.
And demanding his submission
wow.
was a fatal error.
Yeah.
It provoked him, leading to a full-scale Mongol invasion of China.
So how did that invasion play out? I imagine the Mongols, with their newfound expertise in siege warfare, were a force to be reckoned with.
It was a swift and brutal campaign.
Yeah.
The Mongols utilized psychological warfare, spreading fear and rumors to demoralize their enemies.
Interesting.
They also employed scorched earth tactics, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake.
Wow.
Speed, mobility, and breaking the enemy's will to resist were their hallmarks.
And wasn't the sack of Beijing in 1215 a particularly horrific example of this brutality?
It was a chilling display of Mongol power.
Yeah.
The city, once a symbol of Jin power, was reduced to rubble.
Wow.
With accounts of widespread slaughter and devastation. The Mongols made it clear that they were not to be trifled with.
It's a stark reminder of the human cost of the Mongol conquests, isn't it?
It certainly is.
Yeah.
And at this point, the Mongols had proven themselves to be an unstoppable force in Asia.
Right.
But Genghis Khan wasn't satisfied. He had his sights set on an even bigger prize.
Okay.
The wealthy Khwarezmian Empire in Central Asia.
That's a name I'm not so familiar with.
Okay.
Can you tell us more about the Khwarezmian Empire?
Yeah.
And what led to the conflict with the Mongols?
So the Khwarezmian Empire was a powerful and prosperous realm, controlling key trade routes across Central Asia.
Right.
At its head was Shah Ala ad-Din Muhammad, a ruler known for his arrogance and his vast military strength.
Right.
Like the Jin Dynasty before him, he fatally underestimated the Mongols.
So what was the trigger for the war?
Right.
It sounds like a clash of titans was inevitable.
The incident that sparked the conflict occurred in the city of Otrar, a vital trading post on the Silk Road. A Mongol trade delegation was massacred by the city's governor.
Wow. I can only imagine his fury.
Indeed, Genghis Khan saw this as a grave insult and a direct challenge to his authority.
Right.
He demanded reparation from the Shah, but the Shah, in his arrogance, refused.
Oh, wow.
This sealed the fate of the Khwarezmian Empire.
Oh, no.
Genghis Khan declared war, unleashing the full might of the Mongol army upon Central Asia.
So this was more than just a territorial conquest. It was about honor and revenge.
Absolutely. The Mongol invasion of the Khwarezmian Empire was fueled by a desire for vengeance.
Right.
As well as a strategic objective to control the lucrative trade routes of the Silk Road.
And from what I've read, the Mongols didn't hold back in their campaign.
That's right. Yeah. Cities like Bukhara and Samarkand, renowned for their beauty and intellectual centers, fell to the Mongols.
Wow.
Once again, we see their characteristic blend of psychological warfare, siege technology, and calculated brutality.
The fall of these cities must have been absolutely devastating.
Right.
Can you paint us a picture of what it was like?
Imagine entire populations put to the sword.
Wow.
Libraries burned.
Oh, wow.
Once grand buildings reduced to rubble.
Yeah.
It was a deliberate strategy of terror.
Right.
Designed to break the enemy's spirit and deter future resistance.
That's a chilling image.
Yeah.
But didn't they also offer surrender as an option?
Yes, they did. And that was part of their strategic brilliance.
Okay.
Those cities that surrendered were often spared the worst of the violence.
Oh, okay.
It was a way of minimizing casualties on their side.
Yeah.
And accelerating their conquests.
Okay.
It was a brutal form of pragmatism.
So it was a calculated brutality, not just mindless destruction.
Exactly. The Mongols were masters of psychological warfare.
Right.
They knew that the threat of utter annihilation was often more effective than actual violence.
Yeah.
And ultimately, their strategy worked.
Wow.
The Khwarezmian Empire crumbled, its Shah fleeing into... Oh, wow.
The Mongols had achieved another stunning victory, adding a vast new territory to their burgeoning empire.
It's incredible how they were able to achieve so much in such a short period of time.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing that managing such a vast empire, especially one built through conquest, couldn't have been easy.
You're absolutely right. And as Genghis Khan entered his later years, he grappled with these questions about the future of his empire, his own mortality.
Right.
He establishes Karakoram as a symbolic heartland.
Okay.
And he puts in place measures to ensure a smooth succession.
Right.
It's a fascinating period because we see this ruthless conqueror also contemplating these deeper questions.
All right.
You know, there are even accounts of him inviting a Taoist monk to his court.
Really?
Seeking guidance on how to achieve eternal life.
That's an interesting contrast, isn't it?
Yeah.
This warrior who conquered vast territories, also seeking spiritual enlightenment.
It highlights the complexity of Genghis Khan as a historical figure.
Yeah, he was a man of action, but also a pragmatist, a strategist, and someone who was aware of his own limitations.
Okay.
And when he died in 1227, the transition of power went remarkably smoothly.
Oh, wow.
Thanks to his careful planning, his son, Ögedei, took the reins of the empire.
So did Ögedei continue his father's path of relentless expansion?
So Ögedei was a capable leader, but he had a slightly different vision for the empire compared to his father. While he continued the Mongol conquests, he was also drawn to the allure of settled life.
Oh, interesting.
He decides to transform Karakoram from a nomadic encampment into a grand capital city.
So we see the empire evolving,
yes,
becoming more settled, more focused on administration and governance?
Exactly. But while this was happening, the Mongol war machine continued to roll westward, pushing further into Europe.
Oh, wow.
In 1223, at the Battle of the Kalka River. The Mongols crushed the forces of the Kievan Russes, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. This victory sent shockwaves through Europe, raising fears of a full-scale Mongol invasion. It's one of those what-if moments in history. What if the Mongols had decided to push further into Europe at that time?
That's a chilling thought.
Yeah.
But even as the Mongol Empire reached its peak, were there signs of trouble brewing beneath the surface?
Even at the height of its power, the seeds of the empire's fragmentation were being sown. Internal conflicts between Genghis Khan's sons and grandsons began to simmer. A competition for power and resources that would eventually tear the empire apart.
So the unity that Genghis Khan worked so hard to create started to unravel after his death.
That's right. The cracks begin to show after Ögedei's death in 1241. His widow, Törigin Khatun, assumed the regency. But her rule was challenged by various factions within the empire.
It was a period of instability and power struggles.
And this instability paved the way for the rise of Mongol Khan. He was a grandson of Genghis Khan. Known for his ruthless consolidation of power.
Mongol Khan emerged from this tumultuous period. He was a formidable leader, but also a ruthless one. He eliminated his rivals, sometimes brutally, to secure his position. This stabilized the empire, but it also sowed the seeds for future conflict.
So under Mongol, we see a return to the aggressive expansionism of Genghis Khan's era.
In many ways, yes. Mongol Khan was determined to continue expanding the empire's reach. He entrusted his brother, Hulagu, with leading the Mongol advance into the Middle East. One of their key objectives was the destruction of the assassins.
The assassins, weren't they known for their stealth and their ability to eliminate their enemies with pinpoint accuracy?
That's right. They were a formidable force.
But Hulagu, with his superior military strength and strategic cunning, managed to defeat them. Their strongholds were destroyed, their power broken. It was a decisive victory for the Mongols.
And after dealing with the assassins, Hulagu continued his campaign deeper into the Middle East, culminating in the conquest of Baghdad in 1258.
Yes.
That was a pivotal moment in history, wasn't it?
Absolutely. The fall of Baghdad was a seismic event. The Abbasid Caliphate, the symbolic heart of the Islamic world, was brought to a brutal end.
Yeah.
The city, once a vibrant center of learning, culture, and commerce, was sacked, its libraries burned, and its population decimated.
That must have sent shockwaves throughout the Muslim world.
Yeah.
Did the Mongols face any serious resistance during their westward expansion?
The destruction of Baghdad had far-reaching consequences. It instilled fear and resentment towards the Mongols throughout the Muslim world.
Yeah.
However, it also marked a temporary halt to their westward expansion. Hulagu was forced to return east due to the death of Mongol Khan. The Mongol Empire was facing internal divisions once again. And Hulagu needed to secure his own position.
So even as the Mongols achieved these incredible victories, they couldn't escape the internal conflicts that plagued their empire. It's a recurring theme, isn't it?
It is, and these internal divisions would play a significant role in the empire's eventual decline. But before we get to that, there's another key figure we need to talk about. Kublai Khan.
Kublai Khan.
Another grandson of Genghis Khan.
Kublai Khan, wasn't he the one who conquered all of China and established the Yuan Dynasty?
That's right. Kublai Khan's story is fascinating. Because it represents a departure from the earlier Mongol Khans. While he was a skilled military leader, he was also deeply influenced by Chinese culture.
Interesting.
He embraced Confucian principles, adopted Chinese court rituals, and even took on a Chinese name.
So we see a shift from the purely nomadic traditions of Genghis Khan towards a more settled, Sinicized approach to governance.
Precisely.
Wow.
And this is reflected in Kublai Khan's most ambitious campaign. The conquest of the Southern Song Dynasty. The last bastion of Han Chinese rule. It was a long and challenging campaign. Highlighting the resilience of the Southern Song. And their advanced military technology.
I've read that the Southern Song were pioneers in the use of gunpowder weapons.
Yes.
Did that pose a significant challenge to the Mongols?
Yes, the Song Dynasty's use of gunpowder weapons and their innovative naval tactics presented formidable obstacles for the Mongols. But Kublai Khan was a persistent and resourceful leader. He adapted his tactics, learned from his setbacks, and eventually, after years of fighting, his forces prevailed. In 1279, the Mongols captured the Song capital of Hangzhou, marking the end of the dynasty and the unification of China under Mongol rule.
And with this victory, Kublai Khan established the Yuan Dynasty. Becoming the first foreign ruler to conquer all of China.
That's right.
That's an incredible achievement.
It is.
But ruling such a vast and complex empire must have presented its own set of challenges.
It certainly did. Kublai Khan faced rebellions, economic instability, and the daunting task of integrating Mongol and Chinese cultures. He attempted to further expand the empire, launching invasions of Japan and Vietnam. But these proved to be costly failures.
Weren't those invasions hampered by bad weather?
Yes.
And fierce resistance?
The Mongol invasions of Japan were particularly disastrous. Typhoons, which the Japanese called kamikaze, meaning divine wind, played a crucial role in repelling the Mongol fleets.
Interesting.
It seemed that even the mighty Mongols were not immune to the forces of nature.
And what about Vietnam? Were they able to resist the Mongol onslaught?
The Vietnamese also put up fierce resistance, using guerrilla tactics and their knowledge of the terrain to their advantage. The Mongols faced heavy losses and were eventually forced to withdraw.
So even at the height of the Yuan Dynasty, there were signs that the Mongol Empire was overextended. That their ability to project power was waning.
That's a keen observation.
Yeah.
And these failures, coupled with the growing internal conflicts within the empire, signaled the beginning of the end for Mongol dominance. After Kublai Khan's death in 1294, the empire began to fracture, with rival Khanates vying for power. The seeds of disunity that had been sown generations earlier were now bearing fruit.
It's fascinating how even an empire as powerful as the Mongols couldn't escape the internal divisions and external pressures that ultimately led to their decline.
It's a reminder that empires, no matter how powerful they may seem, are ultimately transient.
Yeah.
They rise, they fall,
right,
and they leave behind a complex legacy
right,
for future generations to grapple with.
So we've talked about the rise of the Mongols, their incredible conquests, the beginnings of their decline.
Right.
What ultimately led to the collapse of this vast empire?
Well, it wasn't just one single factor,
Right.
but rather a combination of internal and external pressures.
Okay.
As we've discussed, internal conflicts and power struggles were a recurring theme throughout the empire's history.
Yeah.
After Kublai Khan's death,
Okay.
these divisions became even more pronounced.
So the empire essentially fractured
Yeah.
with different Khanats going their separate ways.
Exactly.
Okay.
The Yuan Dynasty in China, for example,
Right.
faced increasing resistance from the native Han Chinese population.
Okay.
There were rebellions fueled by resentment towards Mongol rule and the devastating impact of the Black Death, which ravaged China in the 14th century.
The Black Death, that was a pandemic of bubonic plague, wasn't it?
Yes.
It ravaged Europe as well.
Yes. It was a devastating pandemic that spread across Eurasia, killing millions.
Yeah.
It had a profound impact on societies and economies, weakening the Yuan Dynasty and contributing to its eventual collapse.
Okay.
In 1368, a peasant rebellion, led by Zhu Yuanzhang, who would later establish the Ming Dynasty, drove the Mongols out of China, ending their rule.
It's almost poetic, isn't it?
Yeah.
The Mongols, who had conquered so many, were themselves driven out by a force they couldn't control, a pandemic.
It's a reminder that even the mightiest empires are vulnerable to forces beyond their control.
Right.
And the decline of the Yuan Dynasty was just one part of the larger story of the Mongol Empire's fragmentation.
Right.
The other Khanats across Eurasia also faced their own challenges: internal strife, external pressures, and the lingering effects of the plague. One by one, they weakened and eventually succumbed to new powers.
So this vast empire, which at its peak stretched from the Pacific Ocean to Eastern Europe, ultimately crumbled into dust.
Right.
It's kind of a sobering thought.
It is, but the Mongol Empire's legacy is far more complex than simply conquest and decline.
Right.
They left behind a profound and often contradictory impact on the world.
Right. I remember reading about the Pax Mongolica.
Yes.
A period of relative peace and stability across much of Eurasia under Mongol rule.
Right.
Didn't that facilitate trade and cultural exchange?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The Mongols, despite their reputation for brutality, were surprisingly tolerant of different religions and cultures. Yeah. They weren't interested in imposing their beliefs on conquered populations.
Right.
They were much more focused on maintaining order and collecting taxes.
Right.
This approach, along with their control of the Silk Road, led to a flourishing of trade and cultural exchange between East and West.
It's interesting how they were able to create this network of interconnectedness, even though their empire was built through conquest.
Right.
Didn't they also play a role in the spread of technology and ideas?
They did.
Okay.
Under Mongol rule, the Silk Road became a conduit for the transmission of knowledge and innovation.
Right.
Printing gunpowder and other technologies traveled along these routes, spreading from one end of the empire to the other.
Okay.
In many ways, the Mongols acted as accidental agents of globalization, connecting different parts of the world in ways that had never been seen before.
So they were more than just conquerors.
Yeah.
They were facilitators of trade, cultural exchange, and even technological advancement.
Right.
But we can't forget the darker side of their legacy, can we?
Of course not. The Mongol conquests were incredibly destructive, leading to the deaths of millions and the devastation of countless cities and civilizations. Their methods were often brutal, employing terror and violence as tools of conquest. Their legacy is a complex tapestry woven with threads of both brilliance and barbarity.
It's mind-boggling to think about the sheer scale of their impact, both positive and negative.
Right.
It's a legacy that continues to fascinate historians and shape our understanding of globalization, cultural exchange, and the enduring power of nomadic empires.
Yes.
What I find particularly interesting is how they were able to unify so many disparate tribes and create such a vast empire.
Right.
Was it simply their military prowess, or were there other factors at play?
Their military strength was undoubtedly a key factor.
Right.
Their cavalry was unmatched, their tactics innovative, and their discipline legendary.
Okay.
But there was more to it than that.
Right.
Genghis Khan's charisma and leadership played a crucial role in unifying the Mongols.
Okay.
He was able to inspire loyalty and obedience, creating a sense of shared purpose among his followers.
He sounds like a truly remarkable figure.
Yeah.
A brilliant strategist, a ruthless conqueror, but also a unifying force who transformed a fragmented group of tribes into a world power.
Right.
It's a story full of contradictions, isn't it?
It is, and that's what makes the Mongols so endlessly fascinating.
Yeah.
Their story challenges our assumptions about history, about the rise and fall of empires, about the nature of power itself.
It's so much more than just dates and battles.
Right.
It's a story about human ambition, the clash of cultures, and the enduring impact of a people who, for a brief moment in time, reshaped the world.
Mm-hmm.
We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have.
And I think we've only scratched the surface.
Yeah.
There's so much more to explore, so many more stories to uncover.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
The Mongol Empire is a treasure trove of historical riches.
Right.
And each new discovery adds another layer to our understanding of this complex and fascinating period.
Well, thank you for guiding us through this deep dive into the Mongol Empire.
It's been my pleasure.
It's been a truly enlightening journey. And for you listeners, I hope this has sparked your curiosity to delve deeper into the world of the Mongols.
Yeah.
They may be gone, but their legacy continues to echo through the corridors of history, reminding us of the enduring power of human ambition, the fragility of empires, and the interconnectedness of our world.